Okay, today I want to go over some of the reading skills that we've been doing in class and some of the strategies that students have been learning to help them understand and put all of the pieces of a longer chapter book together. Now that second graders are starting to read more and to read chapter books and not just picture books, they have to really make sure that they're reading closely and that they're rereading and really thinking about the characters and what's happening in the story. Because as we all know that in a chapter book, authors don't always come right out and tell you what's going on. You need to do that hard work of inferring and thinking about what's going on with the character, thinking about clues that the author gives to help you with the setting, and the problem and the solution. And so the book that we started looking at the other day, or last week, was Buster's Dino Dilemma. And we chose an Arthur book since children are really familiar with Arthur. And basically this is a book about these two friends. They're in a class and they're on a class field trip to a fossil park. And when they get there, Buster ends up finding a fossil and getting very, very excited about it. He doesn't want to share it or tell anyone about it. So we haven't gotten to that part in the story yet, but I just want to review some of the strategies that we've done so far. So one of the things that we did is we taught the second graders how to read a little bit in the first chapter, because often the first chapter has the most information. The author is usually giving us the characters, the setting, the problem that's going to set up what the rest of the book will be about, or the big main problem that the children will have to think about and be following along with throughout the book. So one of the notes that we took after we started reading chapter 1 was we put the name of the character, Buster, and then what did we learn about Buster so far? He loves dinosaurs, he reads dinosaur books and movies, he's really prepared, and then we thought that he might lose his materials because we were trying to think about what types of problems might he get into with this field trip. Then after we read the first chapter, the following day, before we even began to start reading the second chapter, we really wanted to make sure that we stop and we think about what we know so far from what we've read. And one strategy that children can use is they can take a sticky and just really quickly, they can jot the characters, the main characters that they know about so far, and you can use stick people so they don't have to write out the word character. I just drew a little house to help them know that this is the setting. What's the setting of the story? We know that they're on a field trip, and we know that they're going to be looking for fossils, okay? Then some of the work that we went to is we went back to see when we knew that they were on a field trip. We went to see what other information could we get that maybe the author didn't come out directly and tell us. So we did go back and reread, and you'll see here I highlighted some information, some clues that the author gives to help me know that this is the setting of the book, of the story so far. And the author tells me that they're at Rainbow Rock State Park. They're at a place to hunt for fossils, so I can think about what I know about fossils and what I know about state parks that would make, so I can picture and visualize the setting in my mind. And then one of the other things we were talking about the character, it says he dressed very carefully. And then he says here he burns easily. So I can imagine another thing that the author did not tell me about is that perhaps it's really hot or really warm where they're at. And it says here in the text, the Buster's saying, this is what paleontologists wear. It keeps them cool under the hot desert sun. So what we added here, instead of just saying that they're on a field trip, we added that they're looking for fossils, they're at the park, and I drew a sun here just to kind of help me remember that it's a sunny, bright day. Whatever really quick jot that I can do to help make sure that I can really picture the setting in my mind before I read on. And again, we always tell readers that if before you start reading the next chapter, if you can't remember what happened with the chapter before, this is a really good thing to do. And it also is a good way to help you review what you've learned so far before you go on to continue reading the next chapter. Then we looked at writing a summary. Here's another strategy that they can use After reading a chapter, students can write a summary. And a summary is about 1 to 2 sentences about the text that they've read so far. And again, we're thinking about who the characters are, the setting, and oftentimes we tell second graders if they can think it, they can say it. If they can say it, they can write it. And so you might tell your second grader after they're reading, okay, let's see if you can think, give me 1 to 2 sentences about what happened in the text. Have them think about those 2 sentences that they can tell you without retelling every single detail in the story. And so as a second grade group, we came up with Buster and Arthur are on a field trip to the state park. So here I have my characters and where they're at and what they're doing. They will look for dinosaur fossils. So this is my quick summary from chapter 1 that I can review before I go on to continue my reading. Today, we also explored looking closely at characters to think about how the characters are feeling. And we read a section here, just to give you a little bit of background. We know that Buster loves dinosaurs. He's crazy about them. And they're on this field trip. And I'm going to read here. Says, Arthur reached his hand underwater and pulled up a stone with some markings on it. Buster turned to him angrily. Then his expression went blank when he saw what Arthur had in his hand. Buster, are you okay? And so we stopped here with the second graders and we said, what does the author mean by this? His expression went blank when he saw what Arthur had in his hand. In order for us to understand this, we have to make sure that we really understand what we know about Buster and what we know about Arthur. And we can take that information and knowing that Buster really, really wants to catch fossils and look for fossils, and Arthur found one, we can imagine here when it says his expression went blank, that he knows that Arthur just found a fossil, and he's so excited. We continue again, and it says, Arthur dropped the stone. Ah, said Buster. He dove at the spot where the special stone fell in and began picking up any stone he could find. He glanced at each one, then threw it away. We can stop there and we can say, well, hey, what's going on with Buster right now? And we can think, well, Buster might be excited. He believes that Arthur found a fossil and then threw it on the ground. So maybe he's worried that he's not going to be able to find it. He's maybe desperately looking for it. And so we can also take a look at the picture and we can look at the expression. You can see here, this is Buster and here's Arthur. And you can see Buster's hands are outstretched. And he almost has kind of like a worried, frazzled look on his face. I'm going to model this with one other book that the children are familiar with. And this book is Pinky and Rex and the Bully. Give a little bit of background on this book. Pinky's a boy. Pinky is his nickname because he really loves the color pink. And Rex is his friend. And he's getting picked on by this bully, Kevin, who's a 3rd grader, an older student, who's teasing him for liking the color pink. And throughout the story, Pinky questions like, should he like his stuffed animals? Should he like the color pink? Should he be playing with girls? Is that okay? And so the spot where I wanted to stop here, where we can do this skill of inferencing about how the character's feeling, is right here. So I'm actually going to just cover up the rest of the text. Pinky's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his hand. Why couldn't Kevin just go away? Suddenly, he heard a door open and someone running in his direction. So we're actually going to look at this part right here. The author does not tell us here how Pinky is feeling. We have to infer. And so when you're reading books with your 2nd graders, this is a really good time when you notice something like this in the text that they're reading to maybe stop and ask a question, well, what's going on with that character? And you can have them make a connection to themselves. Well, has your heart ever pounded really hard and you could almost feel it in your throat? Why did you feel that way? What was going on? And then thinking about what we know about Pinky so far, what had happened previously is that the bully Kevin knocked him off of his bicycle. So we can infer that Pinky's feeling scared, maybe, nervous, afraid, embarrassed. You can see that his cheeks are red. And so these are some things that you might try to ask your second grader to see if they can figure that out. And again, a leading question that you might ask them that's a little more open-ended so that they can come up with the ideas. You can say, well, how do you think he's feeling here? What's going on with this character? And then if they're having a hard time, you can say, well, what do we know already about the character? And what do we already know about what's happening in the book? And then you might go back and reread that section and stop and talk about it. And again, we really want second graders to be able to do this because the books that they're reading are going beyond just information directly from the text. They have to use that expression, read between the lines, and they have to do that deep thinking where they're really inferring and thinking about what's going on in the story and the clues that the author's giving us without coming right out and telling us what's happening with the character. I hope you found this little review of some of the skills that we've been learning helpful. And again, just to quickly review, they can think about the character, jot some information down. Doesn't have to take long. They can use pictures to quickly jot what it is that they're reading about to help them remember what they read the day before or the chapter before. When they're finished reading a chapter, they can write a summary, which is 1 to 2 sentences about the text. And then today we talked about going back to the text and using the skill of inferencing and trying to look for the clues that the author gives to help us figure out a little bit more about the setting. And then again, more information about what's going on with the characters.